September the 20th, 2024. Guys, you're looking at the last update this afternoon from the National Hurricane Center. Not much has changed out here. We're just not sure what these are going to do. They're kind of far north as far as latitude, and they're kind of fighting a front pushing down also. But this storm now has went from a 40% chance yesterday and this morning. Now they're calling it disturbance number 3, 50% chance of cyclone formation. This is for the northwestern Caribbean Sea and the southern Gulf of Mexico. A broad area of low pressure could form by the early to middle part of next week over the northwestern Caribbean Sea. Thereafter, gradual development of this system is possible, and a tropical depression could form as the system moves slowly to the north or northwest over the northwestern Caribbean Sea and into the southern Gulf of Mexico through the end of next week. And it started out with the timing being around the 26th as far as getting into the Gulf. There's going to be a slight change here, but they are downplaying the storm big time. And I was just watching a few minutes ago Pastor Paul on Paul Begley's channel. He was talking about the same thing, and he actually read a couple of articles to where meteorologists were saying they were really unsure of what's going on. They were kind of downplaying everything, and that they were saying that because of alternative weather sites like ours, and that people are too sensitive to handle that in case we're saying it too early. We're putting a warning out too early, guys. Can you believe this? That they are waiting longer to predict anything as far as putting it on the local news or national news. You're seeing it here on the information that's coming. But the populace is too sensitive. Can you believe that? They have to be Democratic. There's just no way around it. Now, I hope you guys are not too sensitive for this information, but here's satellite images. Tell a difference in change between this morning and this afternoon. We'll look a little closer, but what I can see is there was a gap between these two systems. That's closed, and we're starting to get the curve in the outer bands, and that faded look, the feathered look right there, classic. And the Canadian model has it coming and maybe missing both the Yucatan and Cuba and coming straight into the Gulf. And guys, with the Canadian model, it shows it hitting the same location of the storm that we just had, central Louisiana. Now, if I was down there, I'd probably want to throw the computer down and cry. I understand it. We've been through a lot here, but guys, we are dealing with weather that we don't really understand, and they're talking about the 152-mile shift north of the intertropical convergence zone, and you're seeing it here. And it's like a lot of the storms in the last couple of days that we've seen have come off very near the Cabo Verde Islands, not a couple of 100 miles south. But what I'm seeing now is the set of systems that we were seeing as this was building up. They have drifted further north, but this band is being pushed back across the Atlantic. There's more here than in the original tropical convergence zone area. Now they're trying to move to the left or to the west, but the winds are stripping them back in this northern hemisphere of the Atlantic, right in this area. Check that out. You got some moisture around the Great Lakes. It looks like you guys are getting some up around the northeast. You need as much as you can get in the west because of these fires, guys. But let me zoom this up and we'll take a look at the visual and the infrared. Now, this is as close as we can get. You can see Cuba here, directly north, Jamaica, and here's the Yucatan Peninsula. And guys, like I said, the Canadian model has got this thing coming very close to a landfall here, but the center missing. And that's what has slowed down the last few storms that have come into the Gulf or the Bay of Campeche, is impact with either one. This one may miss that, and that may be why you're about to see some very large models. Let's go into the infrared for a moment. Now, looking at the infrared, guys, you can see from earlier today, it's kind of scattered. Now everything's concentrating in the center. We're also getting these classic feathered out sections when a storm is forming like this. But again, it's coming to the center. It's moving north and northwest, and that puts it very in a very good possibility to miss both the Yucatan and western Cuba, like I was talking about. When they don't have anything to slow them down this time of the year, and by the way, we are 10 days past the peak of hurricane season, which is September the 10th. That's the average, but everything's different now. Anyway, we're inside the top peak of the entire cycle right now. It'll start to go down if the models are correct, but again, the models aren't working out for many right now as far as going from average year to year, but we know things are changing now, and that's why. But let's look at something else. Now, this is the Canadian model, very accurate. It in the Navy model, unfortunately, the Navy model is still stuck on Francine for some reason. I won't go into that again tonight. Anyway, 28th September, this thing's going to be setting right here. Now, you're already going to be seeing elevated tides, elevated winds, rip current warning, small craft warning, all of the above. It's going to be a dangerous situation. But let's back up just a minute. Let's go. That's the 27th. So by the time it gets into the Gulf, it's moving much quicker. Now we're going backwards. That's what you're seeing. 26th. So it's coming in here, guys, on the 26th, 27th, setting in some of the warmest waters on the planet. I backed this up and paused it at the 24th. That's not very far away today. It's the 20th. What's going to happen, you're going to see it get into the Gulf and start to slow down and intensify. It's not going to just rush through this one. Watch this as we go forward. Now, in 24th, crossing the Yucatan, still the 24th, 25th, it's reaching out. Now, again, the entire center did not go overland, and it's over the very narrow part. But this thing can change. We know that. Now we've come one day from the 24th. Forward, 25th, storm slowing down. Look where it's at, starting to strengthen. Still the 25th. Now we're in the 26th. Watch. Still in the 26th. 2 days out in this water. 27th, 2.5 days. Let's see how far it goes. 27th, starting get ready to come ashore. 28th, it's right there. So what we got? 3 days in the open Gulf for this thing to intensify. That's why they're showing it pushing the high pressure back, because when they get this size, they control it. Notice what else is coming up. Now, we're going to focus on this storm right now. We've got time to watch for this, and we know that a lot of storms have been pulling off or either forming right in the Bahama area and moving up the East Coast. And again, I don't know what's wrong with our Navy model. This is going back. This is at the new one right now as we're looking at it, but they're saying September 11th, and this is Francine, and it's about to go into where they're talking about the new storm May. Maybe they'll come around. They may have their hands busy with whatever's going on around this planet also, but to me, the weather, or the NavGem, model has been very critical on one half of the equation, because I've always said they have the most vested interest because of the Navy in the oceans, right? And so makes sense. Is it just that they don't want to pull this information forward? And I just want to say something. If there was weather manipulation, like we had at that time Lyndon B. Johnson saying, I think it was 64, he was at some college deal, and he had his hands in there, kind of like Hitler, screaming that he who controls the weather controls the world. You guys remember that? Well, if they can do it with a storm like this, what states, red or blue, would be affected? You tell me. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, they're still at Francine. Let's take a look at the global forecast system, guys. You see the system forming, and this one has it pretty much shooting the gap here. One skirt with the northern tip of, or the western tip of Cuba, It's not very mountainous, and it's very shallow there. We'll watch it one more time. Notice at the end there, you've got a storm setting off the east coast and one right out here. We go stop this as it gets into the Gulf right in here, 26. Now that's going back to some of the original models, but we're going to step it forward from here. We're into the 27th. It's been out there 2 days. 28th, it's right there. And by this time, this thing could be drifting to the west or to the east. It will depend on the high pressure, how strong it is over the area. Even though it will push back on the high pressure, it will push back on the weakest section, not the strongest. But we are at September 28th, and it's too late to do anything but be out of Dodge. I hope you understand what I'm telling you now. This thing, if it even comes close to what they're showing us now, it's going to be another Katrina or worse. Let's let it play all the way through. Going to loop back down. Notice that into the Gulf, possibly reforming. Let's see what this loop does. I'm looking at it first time just like you guys are. Here's our storm system out here. Comes up, gets pushed back down into the Gulf, and then another system comes out of the Caribbean, is right here on the east side of Florida. One out here in the Atlantic. Now let's take a quick look back at the Caribbean satellite. It is now 3:19 p.m. Central Time here in central Mississippi. This is what we got. Again, looking at it, this is what's called the day cloud phase. It can show your higher clouds in the yellow and oranges and the lower clouds near the surface. But we can definitely see how this is becoming much more organized. You saw the models for yourself. If they're wrong, then we'll deal with that. As soon as they start putting a number on this system right here, I can get the computer printouts and start making our tracks. That's what I really enjoy doing, because you're not looking at a weatherman, you're not looking at different aspects. You're looking at, especially in the last few days, pretty much where the storm is going to go and how strong it's going to be. But we're watching it, guys. You can count on it. If the Lord's willing, this thing will be covered from head to toe until it makes landfall. It's a heads up. Be safe.